Today's episode is a powerful one. My guest's path into energy healing wasn't something she planned. It was born from an unimaginable loss. After the passing of her daughter, she found herself shattered, searching for meaning in the midst of her grief. That search led her to the Akashic Records and the world of quantum energy. And what she discovered completely transformed her life. In this conversation, we dive deep into the unseen roots of trauma, past life, inherited patterns that can silently shape our present, and how connecting with our soul's energy and wisdom can offer clarity and healing that changes everything. If you've ever felt stuck in pain, you can't explain or long for understanding and a deeper why behind your struggles, this episode is for you. Kanika, thank you so much for being with us here today. We are so excited to dive into this. I haven't interviewed anybody who's spoken about this before. So yeah, I mean, your journey is quite outstanding. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, my parents lost a child too, and I was very young, so I know that really changes and shapes your life. Can you explain your story a little bit in your own words and how you went from such devastation to now really helping the world?
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd just say I'm so glad to be on the show as well because this is a topic that I do want to talk about more. Not as much to talk about, my grief and so much, but just to show light to the world and really tell people that there is transformation possible. And it doesn't matter, like for me, and I know some other parents now, some of the work that I do as well, where parents have lost their loved ones and I help them connect with their loved ones, just find peace and closure with that. But even if it's not something terrible like that, there's a lot of other things that we go through in our human life experience. And I just want to give people an example that life's possible. After that, you can smile, you can live life, you can, it can be okay, even if you feel like you're really down in the dungeons. So, to explain my story, I'll do like a before and after. And if I paint the before picture, so yes, I was pregnant with my daughter, but if I just wind back before that, I was I was leading a life that I suppose my parents, my teachers around me, my friends around me were doing, and I was sort of doing that. There were in between parts where I was following my heart, and there were other parts where I wasn't always following my heart, which I didn't understand then. For example, I went out, I did an MBA. I really, really liked that, enjoyed that. And then after that, I think the first job that I took, very, very close to my heart. Afterwards, I sort of chased the money or what seemed to be better on the CV a little bit. And that's where I started feeling the internal barometer of joy really dropping down, which I think happens with a lot of people as well. We go into a job, we've picked it up because the money is good or something seems very fancy about it, and it's a shiny thing. So we really want that. And then I was in the cycle of burnout, in the cycle of overwhelm, and not really understanding, not really enjoying what I was doing. And so between this makes that the time I'm also getting married, then I have my little son. And life wasn't really going well. I started doing, I guess, what a lot of people do around that time is, invest on self care. And it was like, okay, how do I take my me time? How do I meditate for a little bit? How do I change my mindset? So I would always say, okay, think positive. Things are going to be okay. um, but for me, that wasn't really working. So after my son was born, I had my daughter. I was pregnant with her. And it was the easiest pregnancy ever. Like there wasn't anything going on with it. Everything was okay. So went on till 31 weeks. We were preparing for her arrival. The nursery was set up because she was going to be my second child. So as a second person, if you're coming in, and I had already around a 2.5 running around at the time. So I'm like, okay, I won't have enough time for her. So I was really in my mind, controlling everything. I had all her clothes planned. Everything was done in a much more organized fashion, as much as I could control the outcome. Internally, I wasn't doing well at all. And one of the questions that was really devastating for me was I was struggling with the fact that she was a daughter and I was supposed to raise a daughter. And now I say that with a lot of respect. I'm a woman myself. And it wasn't so much that I didn't want a female. It was more like, how do I make another female happy? Like, how do I raise someone else? Because my life is just so bad. Like, I don't like any bit of my life right now. So that question was just eating me inside. Um, as I was realizing, okay, I'm going to birth a mom. Because in my view, then I was feeling that the world's a little unfair place. For a woman, it's a lesser place. And I was like, well, I did the best education, I did the best things that I could. And how am I going to raise a daughter and raise her okay so that she feels good and fine? So that was the question that was really taking me. Now, one morning I woke up. I actually had a good sleep that night because I didn't feel as much kicking, but I'd lost her in the sleep. And that's when world changed. I don't think I was still ready to believe that. I just went to the doctors and they were like, well, there's no heartbeat. So long and short of it, I had to deliver a stillborn baby. And I was just so guilty, so ashamed, so guilty. Ashamed that I was sleeping, ashamed, guilty that I could not bring a person into the world. Like I failed on my very duty as a mom. Like the first thing a mom does is brings a child out. And so all the grief and everything that I'd been trying to hide before that, all the trauma or all the unprocessed emotions I had in me, they all rose to the surface. And this time there was no running away. But the silver light in there was because I really wanted to connect with my daughter. And I had a son who was 2.5 years old. So it was a very weird juxtaposition, right? At the one end, I was very sad. Sad is not even a term, like it's just way beyond that. I didn't know how to cope, I didn't know how to live another moment. But at the same time, whatever I was complaining about, I had a little child who was so full of joy. And I'm like, I cannot check out on life because he is there. Like he knows happiness. And it's good that he was at that age, that time, because he was this constant mirror, showing like, hey, this is possible. This is what life is about. And he would bring me toys and he would go, Mom, why aren't you smiling? And I'm looking at him and going, well, how do I even begin to explain to you? And why should I explain to you? Like, I didn't want him to feel the sadness anyway. So, but in that struggle, that's where I was learning that, well, we were all born happy. Just like my son, we were all born happy. Somewhere we disconnect. So it's our internal balance that goes away. And I started doing the practices. I started doing energy healing. I got into Akashic Records to really understand and connect with my daughter because I wanted to say sorry. I wanted to say I love you, just all the things that a mom wants to say and have that. And here's the beautiful thing that I learned. As much as all of this sounds really terrible on the human front, as in on the life front, right? Like if I told anyone, nobody would say, well, this was good. But at a soul experience level, this is what I'd asked for. You know how? I had told her before I came here, she was one of the persons I'd made a sacred contract with. And I'd said that if I am failing in this life, as in if I'm not failing in the sense of like, if I'm not really living my purpose, if I'm not really evolving, if I'm just going down, if my life's not going, and purpose, the definition of purpose simply is like whatever gives you happiness. So if I'm failing in that, if I'm just squandering away my life, then come and kick me out of it. So the universe and they tried in various forms, giving me lots of signals like, hey, you're burning out. Hey, you need to do anything. So I did know that. I just wasn't acting on that too much till they realized, okay, now we have to pull a much bigger lever because she's just not waking up. And so that's why my daughter, because I'm just thoroughly a mother, I'm a mother archetype. And this had to be done because anything else I wasn't really listening to. So this was my soul contract. This was my calling. And she still stays with me. It's just a different bond. So offering hope to other parents as well in similar shoes or whatever grief you have. It's also the realization for all of us that it might seem very painful on the surface. And I hear you, I understand you. But maybe in some sense, maybe in some form, we all called it because we're being pulled into a bigger direction of light and love.
It's so beautiful to hear you speak like that, taking something so tragic and really looking at it from a completely different perspective. It's just, to me, it feels like you're giving so many people hope that they don't have to be trapped and tied to this one thing that's happened to them, and it doesn't have to destroy them. It's, yeah, hearing you speak and just the pain that you have been through and now coming out on the other side is just, it's really puts me in awe. I admire and respect what you have done so much. I just want to touch on quickly for people who don't know what the Akashic Records are. Can you explain what they are?
Yes, definitely. And the Akashic Records, they were a huge part of my journey. So I'll explain it this way. The Akashic Records, they contain anything and everything about us, like all the experiences you've had, all the decisions you've made, whatever you've ever felt, not just in this lifetime. They contain all that information about all your lifetimes. As a human, as a non human, whatever you've done, they contain that. So if I was to take you as an example, Natasha, it would be your information that's in there. It would also contain information about your children in this lifetime, past lifetimes. It would contain information about your partners and so on. So it's a very beautiful library that's available to all of us. That if we go in there, we can understand the picture from a much bigger perspective. Think of the dance floor like the earth, or when we evaluate life on earth, think of that as a dance floor. Like when we are in the middle, it almost seems like, well, life's happening to me. And what do you mean, like life is working for me? We are almost in the middle of the traffic jam and we're trying to understand why there is a traffic jam. But we can't go up and we can't really see whether there was an accident or so on. It takes us to pass that and then understand that, oh, this accident happened and that's why we are in a traffic jam. So the Akashic Records, the view that they give you is from a helicopter above, and you look at that and you understand this life. So you see the traffic jam from up above and you go, oh, okay, this is what's really happening. If this person came into your life and it might feel odd, or maybe your jewelry was stolen, your house was robbed, anything, even good things, right? Like people getting babies getting born, or you getting married, engaged with your soulmate. All of that is a bigger orchestration. And you understand all of that through the Akashic Records. When you start understanding that bit from the balcony above, it's different because it helps you see your life in a much bigger, fuller sense. So you no longer feel lost. You don't go like, hey, what is my life purpose? Because you understand all the points and how everything is happening. Um, and also the cycles, the patterns that we are repeating. Like for me, the pattern was the shame. And the shame, as much as, it's okay to feel shame in this lifetime for not being a good mom, there were lifetimes before where I'd had that, where I'd felt that, where I'd had those mother wounds, I had had children taken away and so on. So this was just one of those lifetimes to really move forward and not have that, carry that pain in me so much. So I was set up. This was my, I was repeatedly given these lessons, and this was my time, well, whether I graduate or not, and so on. So when we start doing work in the Akashic Records, we understand our life more. We're also able to go back and heal some of the things. Sometimes you're just working past life patterns. So, like people go into, for example, on off relationships with someone, there's a toxic ex, they sort of know that they're not supposed to be there, but they keep doing it because there's karma attached. So, when you work in the Akashic Records, that's where you can go and you can heal that as well. So, you don't have to any longer operate out of that. And then the other thing, what a lot of people don't talk about is we think that, and everybody says, oh, there's pure light, we come as pure souls, and so on. But there are also interferences in between. There can be interferences where we don't receive enough, where our guidance is um, well, I would say like there's just some disturbance, there's some other things in there, so you don't receive enough or you're not able to enjoy life enough. So when you start removing those energetic cords, you start removing those interferences, those past karmic ties, and all that woo-woo stuff, but all of that is real for me because I see it in the Akashic Records so many times. Even like black magic and so on, all that's real from past lives as well. You might be carrying it. But once you change that, like life changes. And that's why I think the Akashic Records are just a phenomenal tool.
And how did you first come across the Akashic Records? Like, it's one thing to have your experience and then you must have gone on like a healing journey, but how did you land up there? Like, what? Yeah, I'd love to know that.
Thanks a lot. And I think it's a great question as well, because before this point, before my daughter's loss, I am still an engineer, I guess. And I am an MBA professional. I've been a project manager for multiple companies, led like multi-billion-dollar projects. So what I'm trying to say is that my brain was very much black and white wired. It was very much like this or that. There was nothing the in between. Um,
That's
that
even
just
more
did not exist.
fascinating that you landed up in the Akashic Records. I'm now like just piecing it all together.
Yeah, but when I lost my daughter, that grief was just so hard for me. And I knew that the only way out for me was okay, just connecting with her. I just had to talk to her. I had to connect with her. That was the time when I started, probably re-looking at the other psychics, at the other intuitives. I went to a couple and I did try and get a reading, and then they would tell me how they were feeling about my daughter, and I'm like, well, but it wasn't cutting for me because I just needed to connect with her. I really so much wanted to say sorry. I wanted her to hear, and I wanted to hear her story as well. I wanted to wish her well, just like perhaps any mom wants to connect with the child. I think I know now that I'm a very, very, like the mother archetype in me is very strong. And that's why they brought it out. Like all the big guns, like this girl's not waking up, so what do we do for her? And so it was done out of love that I had that wounding, but it was just something that I could not sleep with. And I remember even at the time, I'd find it so surprising because even at the time when I just lost her, I knew no tools. I would always say, I'm going to go and connect with her. And I didn't know why. I knew nothing. There was no spiritual teacher. There was no spiritual book that I was even reading or anything. But I knew I would do it. And I would always ask the universe, just like you've given me this, that's okay. I've got to live on because I've got a young child. And I made a mental list. Like I'm so much of an engineer. I made a mental list. I went like, okay, my parents, they'll understand my grief. So and so will understand my grief. All of them were adults. And even if the kids were there, I was like, well, their parents will be able to somehow explain the story to them. There's one person, again, mother, I could not check out on, and that was my son. So I was constantly living between these two, like where I had to live. And then the other thing was, well, if I was living, I needed to live in a way that where I was happy. Like there was no point living and being the mom for him if I was going to be in a constant pool of tears. So that's how it started the journey. And then one thing led to another. Like it's so funny when you ask the universe for help. Um, I remember because he was so little, and there was a time when I went to the library with him, and he just couldn't let me even browse the books because it was so left brained at the time. And so even before I was looking at meditation, for example, I was like, okay, right, what are the benefits of meditation? What am I going to get out of it? Like before I even try it, do it properly, like that's how much of a control freak I was. And my son was there, but he just wasn't peaceful enough throughout my time in the library. And so I just made a very silent request and I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if I just went to a place and I could just get library time, like half an hour time, just by myself, no one bothering me. And you know what happened? My driver's license, it was expiring. So I was supposed to get a photo taken to renew that. And I Googled the place and I said, okay, I'm not going to go to this one, which is my regular service center. I'll go to the other one. And lo and behold, when you put in there and then you have a waiting time to get into that queue, my son was in daycare that day and they had a library right next to it. So I got the time. So that's how like little and little things just kept happening. I mean, I found I did that book that I'd read around was Transcendental Meditation, but things led to other things and other teachers came, and truly like how they say that teachers, when you're supposed to meet someone, that will happen. So Akashic Records happened a little bit later, but it's just like all magical pieces that just kept happening so much that now I just trust that if it has to happen, you just lay out that request. And I have that innate trust that it will unfold, because when you're asking for help, there's as much light there that is really wanting to help you on your journey as well. So by all means, just ask the question, ask for help. A lot of times we don't ask for help. We program to not ask for help, but ask the universe. Tell the universe, I need this.
It's true, we don't. We're so programmed to do things by ourselves. So how can you differentiate between what is your trauma that's happened in this lifetime and something that you've inherited or that it's been from a past life?
That
Or
is such a
because
good question.
are those three things different? Like inherited trauma and past life trauma different, or are those similar?
They, well, a lot of times they can show up in different ways. And, so, okay, let's explain, or let me give examples that people can understand that a little bit. All of our lifetimes, they are, or whatever experiences we're having in our lifetimes, we're really having them because our soul wants us to learn something. It's not out of spite. It's actually not even karma. Like, it's not even like, hey, you lived a bad life or you did something there. It's not even like, okay, you shot someone and so now you're going to be punished for that. Not really. It's more that you continue and you evolve from that. So even if there was something negative that happened, even if there was something in there where, let's say I killed someone, it's more like, have you learned from that? Have you done your remorse, and how do we make you do that? So, in all senses, this current lifetime that we see, it's sort of the most evolved version right now because it's the summation of all the past lifetimes. Now, the things that we're still carrying on from the past and the things that will still happen to us while we're growing up. And that could be the inner child, that could be the inner teenager as well, that could be the inner adult that we get those. It's not as much around how they're different, but they will show us and they'll, how you would notice them is that you would just notice a pattern. So just look at things in your life. You could look at what is it that you usually try and do, like how is your life usually like? What do you usually get stuck with? How much money do you have? If you feel, for example, if I take the example of money, because money is, people know how much is in their bank account. We can't fluff and lie about it.
It's true.
It's one of the more transparent things, whereas relationship or so on, people can be a little bit muddy.
So true.
But money is what money is, and you know how much you can afford, and you know how much is in your bank, how much you get in a month, ballpark, right? So if, for example, your wiring is that, hey, it's hard for me to earn money, now you could see that in your daily life as well. You would also see that within your family. So it's not just us, we're also carrying stuff from our parents, from our uncles. And We may feel that ancestors behind us, we haven't met them. I know, like, there was a client of mine, she's like, I never met my mother. She passed away long before I was born. But they know now, like, there's studies to show that epigenetics, for example, will show that we carry all that stuff from our ancestors. There have been studies done where they looked at Holocaust survivors and few generations down the line, and they saw that with those kids, there was more anxiety, more stress levels there in general. But that is still generations far from when that event happened. So we really do carry it in our DNA. So it is, it's for us just to look at the patterns in our life. Like, do you find it hard to earn money, for example? And then you would see, okay, why is that? You can subconsciously start to rewire those beliefs. You can look at, you can do different exercises around money. Like, you could look at, oh, so how does money feel to me? Like, just imagine, for example, money as a female, and just see her energy, and just imagine that you're sitting with her, either she's in your house or you're meeting her in a cafe or so on, and just see how does your body react. And that already starts giving you a clue, like, how do you feel with money? Because we can carry some past life imprints there. We can carry trauma from our lifetimes where either money's been snatched from us, or we felt guilty about having more money, or we did terrible things for money, all those things. But it starts with us looking at the patterns. And that's why I always say, just look at one thing in your life, one thing that you want to change, and we'll change that in this session, because we unwind that story bit by bit. And there's bits, a lot of times, some bits can be in this lifetime, because also whatever you're reflecting in this lifetime, that is based off your previous lifetimes. And then sometimes we'll go to the previous lifetimes and we'll start healing those parts as well. But that's how you start seeing enormous shifts, because you shift the story, you shift whatever changed that thing. We all came in as full divine beings, like we are all part of source, God, goddess, creator, creatress, whatever you want to call that, right? We all came from that. So if we all came from that divine spark, we're all divine inside. Why we feel disconnected, why we feel lack, is just something got in the way. And literally all that it is just that exercise of peeling all those layers away.
So is that why with some people they can go on a healing journey and they can feel like they've done a lot of work, but then they don't see the results? Is because they need to go back and heal these inherited or these past life issues?
Yes, yes. There's usually something that you're still missing. I know people, for example, who've been, like, I know some really, really wonderful healers, and for them, money still seems to be one of those things where it's not okay. Or sometimes you would find people are not okay speaking out as much, like being as visible. They sort of want to do the work behind closed doors, and you're not, or there is an area where they're comfortable, and then you just have to ask the question, like, what's really stopping me? I mean, that is a conscious question that we can all really begin asking. But when you go to a healer or an Akashic Records reader, then they can help you understand what is behind that visibility wound. And one of the ladies that I saw, like, she was stabbed. It's very common, It's very common. If we look at human history, and we don't even have to go generations far. Like, we are such a lucky generation. We usually are not seeing war face to face. We're not seeing it. There is still war happening in the world, but majorly our lives are not impacted by it. But go back one generations, two generations, just open up the History Channel or watch anything and calculate how many of, like, how far behind in our generations that would still be very much part of their life. We carry about 7 ancestral stories in our life. Like, within one body, we are actively carrying 7, even more so the last 4 that we are taking in our body. So we all have stories of war. We all have stories of things being taken away. We all have stories of being punished because you spoke something, because you said the truth, or so on. So we all carry that trauma. And hence, it is around unpeeling those layers and what is that bit that you did not see, And what I could also leave the listeners with is that if you feel like you're still stuck and there's something that you've been on a healing journey, like you say, and there's still something there, ask the question, ask the universe, like, show me, what is it that I am still missing? Like, guide me to something, or show me what is it about. And often when I have people and I'll tell them this is what's really happening, they'll go like, oh yeah, this is what I was seeing in the dream, or this is what happened. Yeah, I like, they know it at some subconscious level, but just ask so that it comes to you. And when it comes as well, don't feel so afraid with it, because if you are powerful enough to have it in your consciousness, you're also powerful enough to be able to heal it. So don't be scared, be empowered, because this is what you can see now. It wouldn't have come if you weren't ready.
So what's the biggest transformation that you've seen in one of your clients? Like,
There are just so many, and they're all different. People come for different things. I recently I'll just give you a few examples. I think that explains a little bit better, because it's almost like whose trauma is greater. And I think everybody's trauma is, even if somebody's just had a pinprick, that could be the only thing that they've ever
all
experienced.
relative.
Yeah.
That's what I feel about it. Yeah.
But I'll give you examples. Like, I've had a very grown up father who came in, and he just carried a lot of guilt. His parents had passed away, and he just carried a lot of guilt of how he'd spoken to them and how he felt disconnected and so on. So in this healing, we connected with his parents. So he got the blessings from them. He could really see them, which was really powerful. He could feel their presence. We could also see the further generations down the line, like ancestral healing. It's just amazing, because when you can see the other ancestors and you can see your role in the whole ancestry line, and see how you were sometimes different, but you're different because of a reason. It's not that you were the odd one out. You really needed, as that odd one out, you really needed to be that bespoke wheel. So it was very necessary. And he saw that picture of himself, where how and why he was how he was, and what he'd done to the whole lineage, and how things just shaped after him because he'd given that example. So it was not just a huge closure, it was also just like this homecoming and really understanding his whole purpose of coming on earth. There was a parent that I helped recently, and so what had happened was, this parent, they'd separated from the mom, so they had shared custody of the daughter. And one time, while the daughter was in his care, the daughter fell down, which can happen. Um, and she fell down, but the mother filed a case, and it was like, well, this is act of negligence, and now I'm going to have full custody and so on, because, well, you can blow up things anyway. And so he came to me like really scared, in the sense that the lady, so the mom wasn't working, and he was just very scared that, what's going to happen, and I don't want to lose contact with my daughter, because if she goes to court, there might be ways in which the court might find the mom a little bit more favorable. And when we looked at it in the Akashic Records, I just looked at his relationship with his daughter, because for me, kids, I just have such, for me, kids just mother archetype. I just have this place for kids. It doesn't matter whose kid, like, I just have a general love for kids. I was meant to be a mom. And even if I wasn't a mom, like, I'm a mom. I just am. So we started with looking at the daughter, and just having a good place for her, and energetically, like, cleaning that space for her. Looked at the space with dad, and cleaned all the energy off from there, all the negative energy. And what we saw was that for the mom, it was more like, of course, ego was coming in, but it was more like the past life interferences as well, where she felt singled out. So it was, we did work there, and I helped her see the balance, and how the child needed both, needed the dad, needed her, and not that. So one of the things that she was feeling was, she needed to feel important. And if sh um, like for her, somehow when dad was in the picture, she just didn't feel as important. That was coming from previous lifetimes as well, and this lifetime as well, like the need to be seen. And so this time it was manifesting as control, like I'm just controlling my child. But once we heal that, she could see it in a spiritual space or in the energetic space. She could really see it clearly and understand that, oh, the child needs the dad as well. So we just worked on that, and I sealed the space so that the child could benefit from having both the mom and dad. And it was a nice, pure, affectionate relationship. And after that, like after we did the clearing, he goes back and he goes to his wife, ex-wife, and she was like, well, okay, they had a chat, and she's like, well, we don't just need to do the papers anymore because I don't think it's fair on the daughter, which is exactly what you want. But this is someone who filed everything, like literally within one day, she'd gotten everything. So she was so fired up and she was like, I'm going to do this. You're never going to see the daughter again. And it had been literally tiptoeing around her, because even if he had wanted to see her, it was like, well, you're coming to my house. She's not going anywhere with you because you can't look after her. So it was that to, well, I think I'm doing this wrong, and let's do what's okay for the child. So it was just a very dramatic, good shift. Another thing that I saw, and probably I'll end with this one because otherwise I'll just keep going, was a lady came up to me for repeated medical issues in her reproductive tract. Like she was always having some fungal infection, she was having some vaginal infection. There were just always things that were going on, like nothing too serious, but she was just never able to get out of medication. And she wanted to break that cycle, which is why she came to me. And when I looked at that, it was um, the story was that in one of the past lives, when she was giving birth, and this was in the 1800s, when she was giving birth, there was a lot of blood loss. So she's lying on the bed. She's trying to push the baby out during delivery. The baby is healthy. And the people around sort of don't know what to do. Because it's 1800s, it's not as medically advanced. The baby is really healthy and she's trying to push it out. There's just blood loss, blood loss. By the time she manages to push the baby out, this perfectly healthy baby is no longer there. He's passed away, so he was supposed to be the heir. But also he was just perfectly healthy. So she just carried that. And mostly she carried that thing that, oh, all these people I was relying on for support and they let me down. And so why she was manifesting this in this lifetime was to her own healing space, like how the body heals. Like, yes, go to the doctors and so on, but just channel and understand your body more and talk to your body more so that your body can heal. That was her main message, because she was a good healer and our bodies are listening to us. So that was her main thing. But that isn't the main thing that happened, because when I told her the story, she's like, oh, now I understand why I never want to have a child, because she'd lost a child that time in the 1800s in one past lifetime. So now anyone talked about a child and her body would just cringe and freeze because it remembered that. So of course we cleared that energy and she doesn't carry that in her space anymore. So it's just funny how our past life and how our traumas impact us. And I could go on and on, but it's just a very potent, powerful tool to look at this and to really rewrite your story.
So when you are working with somebody, I'm just listening to you talk about this woman who in a past life lost their child, and in this life you lost yours. Do you have some healing happening, or you feel like you're beyond that now?
Well, it's always happening, and it's really good you asked this question as well, because the intention that I set for my Akashic Records reading and healing is that the people get the highest healing possible for them. And while the guides are working for them, the guides are also working for me. We are all a mirror, right? So for me, a lot of times what the clients are what the clients are showing, it's also a mirror to me, like what's happening, what the core things that I'm dealing with, particularly if there's a certain style that I'm getting again and again. But it's always a healing both ends, because I'll often see their healing guides come up. I'll often feel sensations in my body with my healing guides as well. Like I'll see different gods, goddesses. I'll, it depends what the, like I know mine, but with my clients, I don't always know what they're working with. And usually I'll say, well, Mother Mary popped in, or um, Durga goddess popped in. And they'll be like, yep, I really look at them, and so on. And then I'll tell them what they're doing and what's really happening and how they can use that, so that even after the session, they can go out and they can still carry that healing on, or use that to their advantage, because these healing guides are still working for us. So yes, I get a healing, definitely. And my clients, I just give them those tools. Like, for example, if Mother Mary is working with them in a particular way, I'll tell them, this is what Mother Mary is doing for you now. Like for this lady, it was Mother Mary, because obviously such a mom energy.
Yeah.
And Mother Mary was just bringing out like lovely blue light for her and filling her entire sacral chakra up with that, and just healing the ovaries, healing the uterus with that. And so that's what I told her. So next time, if she ever feels like that, or if she ever feels like, there's something funny going on there, that's exactly what you can channel. You can ask Mother Mary for help. That's what I always leave my clients with as well. Like, this is what's happening, so that if they need to get it again, they can.
I love that. So as we're nearing the end here, I want to know, how do you recommend people start to connect with their intuition? So someone's listening to this and they're thinking, I don't even know. I don't know how to talk to my intuition. I don't know how my intuition talks to me. What would you suggest people start to do?
Well, it is a really good question. And I think the first off answer that I wanted to say was, well, just listen. But then you're right, a lot of times there can be interferences in between. So just get into a calm space wherever and however that works for you. And those are spaces, where other thoughts have stopped. So I do have a podcast. It's called Art of Life Guided Meditations, where I put out lots of guided meditations, and they all take you on a journey. They're all related to a particular topic, whatever comes up. There's some small ones in there around just grounding techniques as well. There's some special ones which are just for parents, so that parents can parent better. Sometimes they can find their own inner peace before they are parenting, because that can be dramatic at times. But you can find your way. Like, just listen to that. Just take that time to relax, whatever that is. If you're not listening to the podcast, just imagine putting your feet on the floor and just letting your feet really go into the ground. If you think of the earth's like a natural conductor for all the negative charges. So just allow the earth. She's got a gravitational pull. Just tell her that, hey, whatever stress is taking this toll on me, just take away that stress. You ask the earth to do that. You imagine the sun above. You imagine a golden beam of light coming from the sun, because that's your guidance, that's your intuition. Take a few deep breaths. Exhale out the stress, exhale out the overthinking, whatever is it that clouds your intention, that clouds your intuition. And specifically with that, okay, my breath is going to now clear out whatever stands in the way. Because your intention is very powerful. And just when we have a clear intention, it can do magical things. So just do that. It doesn't even need to be a very long exercise. And then just ask yourself the question, whether whatever it is that you want to be clear about, whether you want to decide between two things, or whatever that question is, whatever you want that guidance on, just ask, just trust. But just take it 2-3 minutes to calm yourself, and then ask that question. You can also say that, okay, I want it to be shown to me in a particular, I wouldn't say make it very rigid, but you could say that, oh, I want it to be shown to me. Like, when I'm driving around, you could show it to me on the cars. You could show it to me when I'm doing a Google search or something, or let someone tell me something about it. But you could just say that I want it shown to me as well. Like, if you were still in the beginning and very much doubting your intuition, that is one of the things that you could say. That, hey, I want a couple of signs. And I would go around. I remember those times where I would go around and I would just see some funny number plates or those signs or billboards and things, and they would all speak out to me. But have that intention and say, this is how I want to know whether I'm on the right track. but talk to the universe. Whatever it is that you believe in, again, source, creator, like whatever, however you call it, but talk, have that connection.
Great advice. So is there anything that you want to share that I haven't asked you?
I think we've covered a lot. I think so. I would just like everyone perhaps to consider. I know it seems like a far-fetched belief that, hey, how can I be divine? But I would just like you to consider perhaps that maybe you are divine. And because we all came from that special spark, the same spark, maybe we are all divine. And if we feel like that's not the case, maybe all that needs is just peeling off those layers. You are divine, you're great as you are. So, however you feel about yourself, because this is the biggest wound that I see on the planet, we all suffer from so much self worth. We just all have a lot of self worth issues. But remember that if you are divine, and the other story I'd like to say is that when we think of our birth, we think of our life, we think of our mother and father who gave birth to us. But the earth chose you. She chose you to come and live on this planet. So you are divine. The sun shines every single day. And as simple and as just as simple, perhaps, as the sounds, it's very profound because it all happens for you every single day. So they believe so much in your divinity. You believe in yourself.
Beautiful way to end. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here with us today and just sharing so much knowledge and information. And I know our viewers and listeners are definitely going to get something out of this.
Thanks a lot, Natasha. I just love being on the show. I would just also like to tell people that I can be reached at Kanika Energy Coach on Instagram. So just Kanika Energy Coach. Reach out to me with your questions. I'd love to hear what you think, what you're going through. My true passion is to help you change your life. So do that. Yep. And I'd love to be in touch with you.
Great. And I will put everything in the show notes so people can connect with you.
Thanks a lot, Natasha.